You're listening to Side by Side with Kathy Wilson. Episode 23, Hickory's Spa Day. There's no place like our garden for a morning coffee break. We were in the midst of a heat wave combined with high humidity. Very soon I would have to put away my trowel and go inside where air conditioning was keeping everything much cooler. In this heat, nothing grew very much except the weeds. They never stop. Ralph sipped his coffee while he perused the Canadian Tire flyer. I considered the menu for dinner this evening and checked to see if there was more coffee in the pot. Lucky me, I was just pouring out my second cup when we both heard it. A loud splash. Oh, blast, she's done it again, those poor fish. I arose from my seat and headed towards the goldfish pond. Ralph's laughter certainly didn't improve my temper, but the spectacle of Hickory splashing around amongst the water lilies and duckweed wouldn't allow me to remain out of sorts for long. After all, who could blame her? The temperatures were rising higher each minute, and that pond was calling her name. I reached forward and grabbed my splashing, cavorting Hickory. Out of the pond and away from the petrified goldfish. This had happened so often during the last couple of weeks that my guide dog would soon be growing gills. I brought Hick back to the table and began to towel her off. I suppose she feels a lot cooler now. I don't think she is doing your water plants much good. She's likely to uproot the poor things. Ralph was still studying the Canadian Tire flyer. You can be sure the fish don't enjoy her visits either. I see the Canadian Tire has wading pools on sale this week. Hickory would probably like that better than the fish pond. What do you think? Oh, it might do very well, as long as it has rigid sides that you don't have to inflate. Her nails would put an inflatable pool into the garbage in no time. These are made of rigid plastic and would withstand her playtime for the summer anyway. So how big is this pool? They come in 3 sizes. If you buy the largest size, she would have plenty of room to splash about. It would be a lot cleaner than the fish pond. That could well be a deterrent rather than an attraction as far as Hickory is concerned. But it is an alternative, so let's give it a try. Ralph was pleased that I had embraced his suggestion, and then I had to get into detail. How are we getting it home? I don't think that they deliver. I've got lots of rope. We'll tie it to the roof of the car. It's not windy, so it won't blow off. Hickory can swim in her own pond this afternoon. It won't take long to fill it with the water, and you can stand by with the towels. Ralph was pleased with his idea. It might just happen. I felt optimistic. All 3 of us got into the car, Hickory choosing the back seat where she could look out the window. This won't take us long. Then you'll have to decide where we want to put it. I don't know who Ralph was fooling. Certainly not me. I knew that he had already chosen what he considered the ideal spot. That was fine in my books. Experience would either confirm or necessitate some reconsidering. The day was showing promise despite the equatorial temperatures. We arrived at Canadian Tire and Hickory looked with interest as she sniffed the possibilities. I well appreciated the fact that she was seeking out the location of the nearest food establishment. She wouldn't have to go far as there was a Subs Plus next door. Salami and cheese with a couple of slices of ham would suit her just fine. But Ralph was not into subs at that moment and directed his steps towards Canadian Tire. You can't get salami here. We could always try the Dairy Queen, you know. Hickory was disappointed that Ralph was not receptive to her suggestions and was on his own mission. Surely her idea had some merit. We made our way to the center aisle where there were two separate stacks of blue wading pools. I indicated the smaller of the two sizes and suggested we could fit it into the back seat with no difficulty. That's way too small for Hickory. If she were a toy poodle, then sure. But she is a big dog and still growing. She needs lots of room. I'm not even sure if this one is large enough. A salesperson nearby overheard our discussion and decided to join in. That's the largest pool of that type we have. How old are your children? How many do you have? It was hard to maintain a straight face while my inward smirk was fighting its way to the surface. I could hardly wait to hear how Ralph was going to answer the curious salesman. She's only 2, but growing fast. The smaller pool would be just fine for a 2-year-old. There would be plenty of room for some pool toys, too. This man was really trying to be helpful and sell merchandise at the same time. Ralph was admiring a big yellow rubber duck. This was definitely not on the shopping list, but Ralph was wondering if it should be. Would this be too juvenile for Hickory? Ralph was asking me, but the salesman kindly answered instead. No, that's perfect for a 2-year-old. I'm certain Hickory will love it. That's an unusual name for your little girl. My wife is fond of hickory nuts. Okay, we'll take the large pool and the yellow duck too. I hope she doesn't chew it to pieces. My little guy is teething as well. He has 2. How many teeth does Hickory have? It was a difficult question to answer. Ralph gave a blasé shrug and replied, She's got too many to count. Ralph handed me the duck and hoisted up the pool. It was with a huge smile that I prepared to follow. The bewildered salesman stood beside the wading pools. No doubt he was imagining my daughter biting the rubber ducky to bits. Hickory, fed up with waiting for him to move, gave him a gentle push. He was blocking the throughway, and Ralph was already on his way to the checkout. Oh, excuse me, he stammered, looking at my dog. I didn't realize that it was a service animal. Oh, that's quite all right. Hickory, forward! It wasn't right to leave the poor man clueless. We caught up with Ralph, paid for our loot, then back to the car to load Hickory's pond on the roof. Some nagging little elf was giggling in his boots and insisting that no matter how much rope Ralph brought with him, it wouldn't be enough to secure that king-size tub on top of our Mazda. I prayed he was wrong, but feared that he wasn't. My little elf just hadn't to disturb my peace of mind whenever he got the chance. We turned onto Glendale Avenue, and from nowhere there came not a breeze, but a full-fledged wind that began to lift the pool from the roof of our car. Kathy, hang on to that pool, or it will take off. Ralph sounded worried. Had he not pronounced the rope secure and stated that Hickory's pond wasn't going anywhere? It was tempting to point out this detail, but the wiser course was to shut up. So for once I did. I clung on to the rope that Ralph had run through both front door windows, but the harder I held on, the more persistent the wind became. Slow down a bit. The wind won't be as strong. We've got to get this thing home before we lose it. Slowing down won't make that much difference. Hang on tight. Put a bit of grit into your efforts before you lose the pool. Now was not the time to get verbal, but he was going to hear about this later. Maybe I would just give him a peanut butter sandwich for dinner. That would certainly be sweet revenge. Ralph reached up and grabbed the rope with his left hand and added his strength to mine. We were definitely going to say goodbye to the pool if Ralph didn't pull over and retie the ropes around our giant frisbee. Cars streaked past us, honking and calling out suggestions. We were instructed to turn it into a kite and fly it home, or put some wheels on it and pull it. One driver offered the idea of turning the pool upside down. Ralph did not attempt any of these helpful hints as he pulled over to the side of a road and began to untie the bonds before reconsidering the entire situation. At last he retied his ropes. Ralph reminded me that he was ex-Navy and knew how to tie knots. I never said you didn't. I think we were both in need of a coffee break by this point, but we still had to get the super tub home. Back on Glendale with the ropes tightly secure, we were crossing over Merritt Street when the pool once more started to make its getaway. Hang on, Ralph instructed as he put his foot on the accelerator. Tadpoles and termites, I'm not muscle man. Muscles I didn't know I had protested loudly, and I pictured throwing Ralph into the pool and leaving him to get out on his own. It seemed like forever before Ralph was turning onto Wembley, which was only a few blocks from our street. I have an idea. My arms are aching from fighting this monstrosity. We aren't far from home now. Hickory and I can take the shortcut from here with the pool and get home almost as quick as you can driving the Mazda. Ralph thought about it for a minute. Can you find your way through the field? That pool will get heavy. Hickory can find the way, and the pool isn't heavy when the wind isn't trying to blow it away. It took no more persuasion on my part, and Ralph freed the pool from its fetters on the car roof. I held on to the pool, and Hickory took me over to the field. See you in a bit. I'll be the one who'll need a dip in this thing once we're back. Ralph was right about the pool getting heavier the further along the field we walked. Hickory, this thing is like a giant hoop. Why don't we give it a shove and roll it along? That is exactly what I attempted, but I must have used a bit more force than I realized because that pond went rolling out of my sight. Leaping lizards, Hickory, where did it go? It's getting away. With a joyous bound and a happy bark, Hickory took off and I held on to her harness with a desperate grip. She took me to the pool, basking with triumphant self-esteem. Hick loved our new game, and so did I. With a determined push, I sent the pool rolling again, and we were off in rapid pursuit. All too soon we reached our street, and we had to transport the pool with more decorum. There just wasn't room for rolling our hoop on a city sidewalk. It's not far now, Hick, and it wasn't. Before we had walked half a block, we were at Ralph's hedge, which got me to thinking. Why bother lugging this pool around to the driveway when I can just throw it over the hedge? Why not save my strength for something less strenuous? Hickory was quite content to go along with my plan, so I picked up the new pond and sent it hurling over the privets. That was much easier. As we reached our driveway, Ralph was just lowering the garage door. He had rubber ducky in his hand, but when he beheld Hickory and I, he stopped in mid-stride. "Cat, what happened to the pool? Don't tell me you lost it. How could you possibly do that?" "It was easy. I just threw it over our hedge." We all went into the backyard. Ralph needed to verify that I wasn't just pitching bull rather than pools. Much to his relief, he spotted it. "Cat, sometimes I really have my doubts. It's not the best throw you've ever made. Did you intend to hit the juniper bush?" "I thought we could put the pool by the garage so it is near the hose. Easier to fill it that way." Ralph set down the pool in the preferred spot and brought over the hose. Hickory was getting excited, pacing around her latest acquisition, then turning around and pacing in the other direction. Ralph was filling the pool far too slowly for my girl's preference. "How full should I fill it? She would probably like it full, don't you think? If you fill it to the brim, it will weigh so much we won't be able to empty the water to clean it." Ralph was not deterred. "That won't matter because she'll splash half the water out." Hickory was still pacing eagerly around the pool. She needed to try it now, and Ralph was taking too long. "Hurry up, man. I want to have my swim today, not tomorrow or next year." I rested my hand along her back to calm her down a bit, and could feel the tension in her muscles. It was evident that Hickory wasn't willing to wait much longer. She was about to spring. "It looks full enough now." Ralph was more than satisfied with the result of his idea. He grabbed the yellow duck and threw it in the pond. That's all it took. In leapt Hickory, accompanied by a splash that would not have shamed a whale. Ralph was drenched, but he was too thrilled to care. Hickory loved her pond as she tossed her duck into the air. "You know, I don't think this is a pond at all. It is Hickory Spa. What do you think, Cat?" "Heck, I wasn't even sure what a spa actually was. So why not? Hickory Spa for sure." We watched Hickory cavorting with Ducky. She was one happy dog. "I was just thinking about what I would like for dinner. How about making us a pizza? That would be good." "Yeah, sounds good to me too." There was no sense of being spiteful. Forget the peanut butter. Then again, how would it taste on a pizza? Should I dare?